The problem with these people is that they are terminal fun ruiners. They are terminally fun ruining people. They really hate people just enjoying themselves. The willingness to discard you over one issue. If they decide that it's substantial enough of an issue, they're going to dump you over it. It borders on violent. First of all, we're going to do a quick cheers with our beers, okay? And then we're about to talk about tenderqueers with Keffals. Tenderqueer, my understanding, has a very particular meaning. Now, here Keffals is using the term tenderqueer as being more or less synonymous with Wokescold and SJW, a very particular type of asshole-ish behavior within the queer community. I just want to acknowledge that there is a slight difference between the way that she is using the term and the way that I have come to understand the term tenderqueer very specifically in my experience. It refers to like weaponization of whiteness and trauma from queer people. So it's like if you have a queer roommate who won't do the dishes, and when you and your other roommates ask them to do the dishes, they freak out and they go like, I can't believe you're all yelling at me. This is triggering my trauma. And then they start a GoFundMe to move out of the abusive environment, right? That's the narrative that they spin. So the idea of tenderqueer, to me, has this very specific connotation of white tears being weaponized, like white queer people weaponizing their trauma to avoid accountability. However, I understand that like kind of all of these terms sort of bleed together when you're criticizing overly sensitive queer people. Like I think that that's sort of what these three terms share. Tenderqueer, SJW, Wokescold, they kind of all refer to a subset of the queer community who are weaponizing their vulnerable traits. If you haven't yet hit like on the video, please consider hitting like on the video really quick. We are about to start responding to Keffals' video here. It's Keffals time. Let's go.
This is a serious issue in the community that no one is willing to talk about because no one wants to endure the wrath of the community by talking about it, but I don't give a shit. I just don't care. Like if I can withstand the
Keffals is such a fucking real one, such a fucking champion for this.
entirety of the heat of kiwi farms, I can say that there are a lot of toxic people in the trans community who attack their own community more than they do anything that materially benefits their community. Some people have said to me that one of the issues that they don't like about me is that I won't rein my community in, and I won't. I don't think any of you did anything wrong. Like, honestly, I think more of the tenderqueers need pushback. I don't think that they should feel as comfortable as they do lobbing accusations left and right in an effort to like slander people through oppression Olympics. If I do something fucked up, I'm willing to own up to it. I'm not above criticism. But a lot of the criticism isn't based on actual criticism. It's not based on anything except vibes.
True. This is going to be a good video.
So there are a lot of definitions I see thrown around for what a tenderqueer is. But the term, as I'm using it, means someone who is a member of the LGBT community who uses social justice issues as a way to manipulate and harass others. Like they use the language of systemic critique as a way to get what they want by attacking other people. And this is an issue, you kind of see it a lot. You see it a lot in these spaces. This is a big issue in the LGBT community, especially in online spaces. And the thing that is particularly a problem is that people get into these fights that don't need to be happening. They try to take a systemic issue and then they label their opponents as being perpetrators of the systemic issue when it's really just that they personally do not like them and they want to smear them and attack them. And
yeah, like people conflate interpersonal conflicts. Like I honestly do think that people get a vibes-based assessment. They're like, I don't like this person. I don't like their vibes. And then they go finding something in their past that we can use as an excuse, like to be mad at them, you know, or like take down their reputation.
In real life, when this shit happens, people just roll their eyes because it doesn't fucking matter. But on the internet, outrage is key to generating engagement. And this is something that has particularly been a problem. So I would say that the Italian pride flag color thing is a very clear indicator of what I'm talking about with the tenderqueer outrage. It's people who try to take like little nitpicky shit and they are manipulative and try and turn it into a huge discourse. And a lot of the time
I don't know if she's gonna explain this, but like the discourse that she's referring to is like, you all know the progress flag. Hold on. Do you all know the progress pride flag? Let's look at it really quick. There's like the regular pride flag that's like the rainbow flag, right? And then there's like also the trans flag. Those are like two different things. But then you've got the progress pride flag, which is more recent. And it's gone through a couple of iterations too, actually. Like you have this iteration, which is kind of like that was like the first one that I became familiar with, where you have the trans flag integrated with the rainbow flag and plus a black and a brown stripe in order to acknowledge the place of people of color within the community. And then you also have this one, which is even newer, where you have the intersex flag in there with the trans flag, the brown and black stripes, and then the rainbow. I think it was this flag that Keffals, she added the colors of the Italian flag to. Dumb little joke. I've seen Italian flags used in this kind of comedic way a couple of times. Like, you never know if somebody you know is going to be da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There's like a gay flag and then a trans flag. The original post is sincere, but there is a meme that goes around where one of them is the Italian flag. And it's just supposed to be stupid comedy. So I kind of interpreted it as being within line, like in line with that same joke. Like, not a Keffals original is what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that adding the Italian flag to the Progress Pride flag was like 100% a Keffals original as far as internet jokes go.
They're doing it because they know they can generate engagement by doing it, at the cost of having any sort of semblance of solidarity within the communities that they're a part of. It's basically a Wokescold, except it's a Wokescold specific to the LGBT community. When I did that one video,
So she's using Tenderqueer as distinct from Wokescold in the sense that, like, they both engage in the same behaviors, except that, like, a Wokescold will do it, like, to Ben Shapiro, and, like, a Tenderqueer is only policing people within the community, I guess. Or it describes their role doing that to other people within the community, perhaps.
the Clowntown people, like, they were Tenderqueers. The video got labeled with them as liberals, but yeah, they're usually liberals. But a lot of them, despite being liberals, are leftists in their discourse. Like, they know the leftist discourse, but they apply it in an incredibly liberal way. So the reason that I wanted to address this in the first place was because our community is consistently under attack. We are on the precipice of going into a dark age for the LGBT community. Fascists are getting elected around the world. Our rights are systemically being taken away.
As much as I support Keffals, it'd be nice if she moved on to some other content instead of dwelling on Twitter trolls ad infinitum. I don't know that this is the most beneficial use of Keffals' time, I suppose, but I do personally think that this is an issue that needs to be discussed, because have you ever noticed how the discourse, the interpersonal queer discourse shit always ebbs and flows with the legislative cycle? So right now, right this moment, we are not currently dealing with active legislative attacks on queer rights right this moment. We're in between those phases right now. So instead, while we're momentarily not under attack, we're going to start infighting, apparently, and being like, you're not valid. You can't call yourself a bisexual lesbian. It's predictable at this point. And this is part of the big point that Keffals is making here, and it's a point that Natalie Wynn from ContraPoints has made before, that the enemy is so overwhelming, the true enemy is so overwhelming, that we find it easier to attack fellow queer people, to police fellow queer people. Like, Tucker Carlson doesn't care that he hurt your feelings by calling all drag queens groomers. He doesn't care about that. He wants to drum up stochastic violence against you, So, but if you tell the neighborhood queer creator, like myself, for example, that I've said something in a video that could be harmful, then, I do care about that harm. So you telling me that I've done something to hurt you can influence and police my behavior, right? You can't do anything about Tucker Carlson, but I am on my own social media. I don't have a person who checks my Twitter for me. I read all of my own YouTube comments. So I am able to be essentially policed by that, I do think that a lot of people misdirect their anger, their totally justified anger about the oppressive system onto each other. So big aside right at the beginning.
Day by day, month by month, it's looking like even the Democrats might back out of supporting trans people
Tenderqueer,
because
true.
It's no longer a winning electoral strategy. So
I would be so fucking pissed if the fucking Democrats pulled out of supporting trans people, I would fucking lose it.
With tenderqueers, which are basically Wokescold liberals who are part of the LGBT community, they pose an actual threat to the community itself because they're not interested in solidarity. They're not interested in building bridges. They're not interested in organizing. What they're mostly interested in is purity testing. And the reason why you don't see a lot of them with larger platforms is because they're incredibly insular. They have echo chambers.
These people like bitch and snipe and like fight each other. They're like fighting over scraps of attention. Like, it's hard to say what exactly it is that they're just constant. Like, this is part of why it's so nice to not be in the fucking SJW community anymore, is because it was exhausting. A lot of my friends self-identify as SJW. They're not really radical. They're trying to take the label back. Most use Wokescold as a replacement. Tenderqueer is still new to me. Yeah, I was in the very first group of people who, like, when the term SJW was originally created to make fun of people who believed in something, I was among the first people who was like, actually, I'm a social justice rogue. LOL. I don't consider it a significant part of my identity, but I would also consider myself an SJW in a reclaiming way, and I don't think that's cringeworthy. The thing is that the whole problem, fundamentally, like the tenderqueer problem, the SJW problem, the issue is that it's a bunch of snipey little bullshit infighting, you know? It's just not useful. Hey, Katya, welcome to the website. Yeah, no, it's cringe because the behavior of that group of people is largely like a bunch of petty bullshit, you know? The SJWs don't like contribute anything meaningful to the movement or to like society. They're like a bunch of like cringy, disabled trans people who like really do spend most of their time focused on the social hierarchy on social media and their like oppression Olympics and the fact that they weaponize their vulnerable minority status in order to police other people and everything, you know?
Because they can't exist outside of those echo chambers. If they tried to exist within the larger community, they would continually get into fights with people who do not give a shit. I don't even know if it's purity testing as much as clout sharking. It's both at the same time. It's both clout sharking and purity testing.
True.
The purity test is to just give a lot of ways they can clout shark. Purity testing would be trying to hold people to a certain moral standard and excising them if they do not fit within the moral standard.
I've literally been talking about this for like 5 years.
That you create. That's basically what purity testing is. You see it a lot in leftist spaces. People decide unless you believe this and this and this and this and this and this, you're not actually a leftist and you shouldn't be in leftist spaces. Most of these people are also like 14. See, I fucking wish most of these people were 14. But I've seen people like this in their 30s and their 40s.
I have for sure seen people in their adulthood doing this. Like, I've been blocked by people for seemingly no reason. Like I've been blocked by my adult friends for like supporting the wrong person, like for supporting Natalie Wynn or whatever. Like, they will kick you out forever. They will go after, any time where you are mentioned in a positive light, they will come after the person who mentioned you in a positive light and say, did you know that you are supporting someone who encourages like, and they'll use the most dramatic language possible to describe your actions, to make it seem like you've done something as egregious as humanly possible. Like, it is extremely abusive. For real, it's abusive.
40s, in their 50s, like it's everywhere, and it's fucking endemic to the trans community. It's crazy. Like, okay, I'm blocked, but here's a good example of a tenderqueer. Like, from this is old, but like, look at this, for instance. Keffals really is a case study in what happens when one of the most privileged folk in a marginalized community somehow becomes the de facto spokesperson for that community without having done any of the work to recognize their own privilege. This is sort of what I mean, right? It's holier than thou. It's pure.
Conversations about privilege are so hard to have now because of how fucking cringe people are about it.
Purity testing, it's sowing division. It has nothing to do about bettering the community or building the community up. But instead, it's about perceived punching up in your own community. So it's like they're listing all of my privileges in this thread. I got to transition young, which is...
Here's all the reasons why it's okay to hurl harassment and abuse toward Keffals, because she has all these quote privileges.
Privilege. And my family supports me, which is a privilege. Apparently my family is rich, which is not true, but that was listed as a privilege. Like, literally a thread on how privileged I am. She's skinny and conventionally pretty. Apparently that's a privilege. She's white. That's her privilege. Once again, I started transition at a young age, so it's listed twice in the same privilege thread. I skipped a lot of bullshit a lot of older trans people dealt with.
Oh my God, true. Anjali, or no, is it Anjali? Speedy Shimeji says, not to mention the weird Christianity like black and white sort of way they operate. If you mess up once, you're done. That's the fucking thing with these people. These people are like you you do something once and like you're never ever gonna get clemency for it again. Decoy Duck, thank you for the tier 1 sub. I really, really appreciate that. Yeah, like absolutely, like the willingness to discard you over one issue. Like if they decide that it's substantial enough of an issue, they're going to dump you over it. And it is like, it borders on violent because, I mean, if you're like, listen, if you're really thinking about how these online communities work, okay? Like me, I'm currently updating my little donation thing so that you all can see, like, here's the currently monthly donations of $732 for the course of the whole month of September, which is great. Thank you so very much. Because I can't work a regular job, like, because of like the stacking of like transness and autism and disability all on top of each other, I can't really work a regular job. So I rely on community support, like not just community support, like this is my job. I provide a service. I work for tips, basically. I provide entertainment. I provide community. Like what I do has value, right? But I do rely on, to an extent, having a good reputation within the community, right? If someone is even more disabled than me, like let's say like a black trans woman who can't walk, right? Like she is even more reliant than I am on this social support network. So if a black trans woman gets this attention on her where it's like, oh, you fucked up. You said the wrong thing. You did the wrong thing. You supported the wrong person during this blow up or that blow up and this discourse or that discourse. That's a death sentence for some people. You know, it's not cute. I got chucked for saying I thought bisexual meant they're attracted to two genders, got dogpiled on, treated like shit, and then blocked. No chance to actually question and know. That's the difficult thing about these people is like, it's not just if you did something fucked up. The social consequences are the same if you sexually assaulted someone and that came to light versus like if you accidentally ask the wrong question. Like if you're like me recently and you're like, is there a difference between like racism in the sense of like actually hating people and using the N-word versus like the quote unquote racism of like not being vocal enough in your support of people of color on Twitter? Yeah, technically the not supporting people of color enough on Twitter could be considered covert racism, but like the asking of the question in and of itself was a problem. People are like, I don't want to educate you. Like, I just want to call you racist. I'm just gonna react to this tweet and then go through your Twitter history searching for any time you mentioned the word black to see if I can find a time where you were being racist against black people. Yeah, you ask something involving nuance and you get blacklisted. Yeah, this is, and the social consequence is the same. It's you lose everything you have socially. The irony of the real SJW types is that they are so utterly patronizing to the groups they purport to support. Take my name. Anjali is a Sanskrit name, yet only white people have ever gotten mad at me. My disappointment at finding out that tenderqueer isn't a kind of chicken. I know, it's so sad. Okay, let's continue.
The privilege. If folks in that position can learn to listen when they get things wrong and boost other voices when they speak about issues they experience, that's great. I totally support folks. And it's basically just going on about how I don't listen, even though I absolutely do listen to people. It's just when they say that, they usually mean they want to manipulate you. They want to weaponize the privilege.
When they say, you don't listen, it's like, I'm listening, but I don't necessarily agree. That's the one thing. Like, I want to be able to like, okay, I hear you. I understand where you're coming from, but I don't agree. And I'm not going to change my behavior. But if you have that response, then they're going to accuse you of not listening, because by what they mean by not listening is like not doing what I told you to do. Every time I talk about this, it's like they want to bring you to heel. That's the phrasing that I use, is like they want you to do what they tell you to do.
privilege discourse in order to get something from you. And that, to me, that's the crux of what tenderqueers are. It's the manipulation of social justice rhetoric in order to attack another person. And it happens so frequently.
All the time.
Even with my swatting attempt, I saw people like Twink Bride saying that they don't feel bad for me for it because I'm not black and it would have been worse if I was black. Which is like, I mean, I agree with the statement, but it's literally a sociopathic statement to say shit like that. Like, you're actually denying empathy for other people in your own community based on oppression Olympics.
Yep.
Yeah, this Twitter thread almost strikes me as bullying.
Like, oh, you're trans and you were targeted specifically because you're trans, but you're also white, so I don't have any sympathy for you. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Under the facade of moral superiority. Oh yeah, no, that's what it is. Tenderqueers are bullies. They bully people in their own community.
Tenderqueers are cry-bullies, by the way. Like fundamentally, the behavior of the tenderqueer is that they're a fucking cry-bully. They're somebody who themselves is a huge piece of shit, but they weaponize their tears in order to make you seem like you're the aggressor. They are abusive bullies.
Community, and they manipulate social justice rhetoric that most people in the community know in order to achieve that end. So it's like I'm constantly dealing on one.
I love the like anime song that plays while her tier 1 sub thing popped up.
On hand with fucking actual fascists, fucking alt-right people, neo-Nazis, conservatives, literally every fucking person you could possibly think of that is incredibly anti-trans. And then on the other hand, I'm dealing with tenderqueers who stalk my Twitter account, so they have every opportunity they can in order to attack me. Well, I'm dealing with being attacked by the actual enemies of our community. And this is what's so frustrating. Is that there's no
I imagine
united
it really is frustrating. Like that exact thing has to be insanely frustrating.
Front, because tenderqueers attack their own community more than they attack the people who are actually a threat to our community.
True.
And the reason that I wanted to bring this up in the first place is because we need to recognize this behavior. We need to call this behavior out. We need people to understand this is not acceptable. This is a case of misplaced aggression. You're hurting your own community. You should stop. But unfortunately, in a lot of spaces, this is completely acceptable behavior. I have a question.
Yeah, not only is it acceptable behavior, but like you're also triggering their trauma by addressing their behavior. Like if you say like, hey, this is counterintuitive to building a movement, like you are fucking things up socially. Like everything is running smoothly socially until you start being a weird fucking person. Like then you are transgressing. Like it's just entirely abusive behavior. Like you enshrine yourself in a shroud of like, can't touch this. Like it's that's what fucking tenderqueers do. They're like, you can't do anything against me. Like I will accuse you of all kinds of shit, but if you accuse me of anything, I will break down in tears. Like that's why there is the equivocation in my mind between tenderqueer and like white tears, like weaponized white tears, because that is what they do. It's not always white people who do it, obviously. Like I would say like there are people who are people of color who specifically weaponize their status as people of color in order to do the exact same thing. Excuse me. I did heavily associate it with whiteness initially.
Genuinely asking, because I saw a few people mentioning how you were blocking black trans women for criticizing. Is that real? Is there misunderstanding? No, basically, if there's a large tweet spreading misinformation about me, I run a chain block on it. So anyone who likes the tweet gets blocked.
I don't run chain blocks, but Voodoo in the YouTube chat says, I've been dogpiled as a racist by white queers for saying that there is a disproportionate amount of queer phobia in the black community. ... I am black. I'm so sorry. That's got to be so frustrating. Like constantly being told by white people that like you need to like figure out the shit that's happening within the black community. Like, oh, like black on black crime, like why is this our problem? You all need to address the shit within your community. And then you start trying to address like the queer phobia within the community and you're like accused of being racist. Like that's so fucking stupid. I'm so sorry. That's gotta be so frustrating. Like I literally cannot imagine how fucking stupid that's got to be. Most minorities oppose shit like this, says Guitar Rocker. It's a small fraction of people who believe in the purity testing shit. I mean, that's you can also say that about the Republicans though. You're right, most minorities don't agree that you should act like this. Most of them think like you shouldn't do that, and it's a small fraction of people who believe in the purity testing shit. But it's like it's also a small fraction of people who are fucking Christo fascist nationalists controlling our country. But like that's all it takes. Like sometimes like a minority just has to be like really loud in order to seem like a very influential minority. They just have to be loud and like go after everybody all the time.
So when I'm dealing with Kiwi Farms people and there's been like a 10,000 like tweet accusing me of being a pedophile because of Kiwi Farm shit.
True.
Like, that's the kind of stuff I deal with. And the way that I try to keep the community safe and to reduce the amount of harassment that I receive on a daily basis is through chain blocks. And on the other hand, I have the issues with the Tenderqueers, where they start this entire campaign where they do oppression Olympics against me to try and convince people that I should not have a platform. And they want to attack my reputation and my character. So when they make tweets calling me out about things like saying that I'm racist because I put an Italian flag on the progress flag, I run a chain block on it because I don't want to interact with any of the people there who
I
like the
respect
tweet.
that so
like,
much.
If you agree with that, I don't want to interact with you because you're a bully and you don't understand jokes. And I can...
You're a bully and you don't understand jokes. Truly, sometimes I feel like you are not... If you don't understand that this is a joke, like, I don't know that you're smart enough to be able to engage with the content that I'm putting out. Like, we might just be on different wavelengths if you don't understand that what I'm doing is humor in this instance. Like, I know that's rude, but I'm sorry. That's my honest feeling that I have sometimes.
Sort of understand the criticism, because people are saying you don't listen to criticism because you block people. And to that I say, at which point do you owe people?
So much of VDS is people who literally just are incapable of humor. To be fair, Vosh is retarded, and so his jokes don't come across to non-retarded people. So like that's why I understand Vosh's humor, because I am also retarded. Sorry.
People access to your account. Like, why am I being told that I'm not allowed to control how I use the internet and who I interact with on the internet? Like, it's a right-wing argument. But the thing with tenderqueers and a lot of the stuff that they do is that they don't actually believe in much. They only care about social justice issues as much as they can weaponize them to hurt other people in their own community. So I've been seeing, for instance, people like Twink Bride.
ADHD and autism are cousins. If they're fucking more or less the same thing, if minimum they're cousins. ADHD and autistic people, we're like this, okay? I love Vouch's humor because I'm also ADHD. I love the phrase ADHD. That's a new one for me.
He's been sharing around stuff taken directly from Kiwi Farms and sharing stuff directly from Kiwi Farms users in order to spread misinformation about me, which then gets picked up by other tenderqueers and used to attack me further. Wait, are these people actually part of the queer community, or are they alt-right undercover? The thing is, you can never tell the difference.
Yeah, that's another thing that Natalie pointed out in one of her videos at some point, was like, these anime avatars, like, it's literally impossible to tell if they are like ops or if they are earnestly queer people who are just like off the rails. Like, it's impossible to tell.
Because when you actually lay out everything that they do, it really does sound like that, doesn't it? But no, I don't think they're undercover. I think they don't really have a sense of solidarity. They don't understand how to build strong communities, and they don't understand how to work in groups, like big tent groups. They understand how to work in like smaller networks where they can excise anyone who doesn't meet their rigorous standards for moral purity. But besides that, there's a reason that you don't see them in big tent organizations. Selfish behavior, they're likely suffering from something and have decided anyone else getting attention or positivity is harming them somehow, and those people must be taken down. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I want to have a community on the internet that is both queer and recognizes this behavior for what it is and says it's not acceptable. If we don't stand together and don't accept each other despite our differences, we're fucked. Like, plain and simple, we are fucked. We will lose all our rights. A lot of us will get forced back in the closet. A lot of us will just straight up die. And can you imagine?
Like, seriously, like, people don't understand what we're up against is camps and gas chambers and getting shot in a nightclub where we went to celebrate our queer friend's birthday. Like, death. Death is what we're against here. And we choose instead to do infighting over whether or not you're allowed to call yourself a bisexual lesbian. Like, come on, be serious.
If that's the outcome and fucking stupid Twitter discourse plays a role in that, that would be the most sad shit imaginable. There's been a kind of gross focus from them about who gets credit for taking down Kiwi Farms and like, what the fuck? Oh yeah, like I was told throughout the entirety of the campaign not to take credit because people have been working on it for decades. So you're only worried about white trans people pretty much? No, I'm worried about all trans people, black trans people, indigenous trans people, brown trans people from all different ethnicities. When I say big tent, that's what I mean. I don't mean that I care specifically about just white people. What the fuck? Where would this even come from?
Like, You hate waffles? You know that tweet, y'all?
Found the tenderqueers. Act like it then? I am acting like it. Yeah, bad faith ignore. Just fucking ban. I don't care. This is what I mean. Like that toxic behavior that is more about attacking their own community than it is about building any sort of bridges. Like that's fucking it right there. Like what does that behavior solve? And the answer is nothing. It sows division.
Yeah, she who knows no name. I do think that there is an extent to which Keffals is kind of just using the term tenderqueer as I mean, she's talking about people who weaponize their minority status against other people within the queer community specifically. Like Wokescold will say, oh my God, Ben Shapiro said XYZ about trans people. In this case, she's referring to trans people who are using their status as trans or their status as black in order to say, like, my opinion is more valid and more valuable. My trauma is more real. Like, it's, I think she's describing a specific issue. Like, it's not personally how I've heard the word tenderqueer used before, but I do think that, like, she's using it specifically to invoke this sense of, like, interpersonal infighting within the queer community, like intra-queer community wokescolding. Because it's not exactly, I don't know, it kind of is wokescolding to an extent, but it is also, at the same time, the weaponization of marginalized identity and saying, like, if you don't listen to me, then you're racist. Like, you know, that's a very specific thing.
I generally think a lot of Twitter LGBT plus discourse is made to distract us from important issues. See, I would normally say that these things aren't real, you know, because it's fucking Twitter. But then you need to consider that a large portion, especially of the trans community, like 50% of the trans community in the US and Canada make less than $15,000 a year. Poverty and suffering.
Hey, it me.
Suffering are rampant issues in the trans community. And it goes without saying, a lot of people are online a lot. They're unable to find work, and a lot of them are afraid to even leave their own houses because they don't want to get hate crimed. So
True.
I feel like in some ways, at least with some people in the community, they see being able to attack other people in their own community as a way of punching up, to reclaim power for themselves, which I understand. Like, you think they would just focus on shit that they agree about until it's actually materially addressed. From what they say, you can't tell what that would even be. Oh yeah, no, like I'm constantly being told I need to be accountable, but there is no mechanism for accountability on fucking Twitter. And 2, they're not even clear about the terms of that. Like, how do you be accountable if you don't even know what you're supposed to be accountable for? Do you have any
Like, the accusations are not always even specific enough for you to do anything about it. Oh my God. Hey, if you're here and you have not yet hit the like button on the YouTube page, consider doing that. There is always a material benefit to the channel when you do that. Privilege is just a set of social circumstances that some people are lucky enough to not have to worry about. In which case, which in turn means they're less likely to have gone through introspection about their relation to those circumstances and are less likely to be able to intuitively understand. That's all it means. Yeah, it doesn't make you a better or worse person. To have privilege also doesn't mean that you have not yet deconstructed that privilege. Like, you could have already deconstructed your privilege and still have it, you know?
Concerns that you might jump to labeling criticism that is maybe not intuitive to you as tenderqueer prematurely. Something I've seen Vosh do in a sort of snap judgment way a select few times. I think the difference is the approach, right? Like, I think the way that you approach the criticism is fundamental to how the criticism is received. Like, if it's a hostile criticism and I'm already being harassed every single day by fucking Nazis, how exactly am I supposed to register that in my brain as any different from the harassment I receive on a daily basis?
True.
And the answer,
you psychologically, like, can't differentiate between those two things. Oh my God, Anansi says, I got blasted for using the term femboy instead of roseboy in reference to myself. Anansi, like, aren't you, like, trans feminine? Like, you are the only, like, you're the person who should be allowed to say femboy. Like, I'm the one who's, like, using a slur and is not allowed to say femboy because you're only allowed to call yourself a femboy if you were born with a penis, apparently. It's a fun word and was never a slur. Fucking amen. Oh my God. Roseboy sounds way more offensive than femboy. They literally like invented bullshit terms in order to enshrine certain words as like protected status only for certain people. Femboy should be fun. Oh my God. Like I truly, like, I started identifying as a furry because it was fun. I started identifying as a femboy because it was fun and also true. I mean, here's really, like, here's the thing. At the end of the day, here's the problem with the fucking tenderqueers and the SJWs and the Wokescolds. Okay, here's the fundamental problem with them at the end of the day. I'm blowing my load. We're only 15 minutes into this 35-minute video that we're responding to. The problem with these people is that they are terminal fun ruiners. They are terminally fun ruining people. They really hate people just enjoying themselves and using these terms in a lighthearted manner. Like, Jess from Trans Girl Therapist is the one who introduced me to the concept of this phrase of like gender as play. Gender is for fun. Who fucking cares? Use its pronouns. Call yourself a femboy. Like, wear a skirt. Wear a strap-on and a skirt at the same time. Like, who fucking cares? Like, do stupid shit. It's fine. It's going to be fun. My other hypothesis is that a lot of these people are living in places where they're traumatized about their gender identities on nearly an everyday basis, like they're in fundamentalist religious communities, or they take it extremely seriously and get overly defensive when they absolutely don't have to with other queer people. I do think that's the case too. Like, I think if you're in a conservative environment, or like if your family is actively misgendering you on purpose and stuff, like, you're more sensitive. So then you go online and someone triggers you like a little bit and you flip the fuck out. Like, you absolutely flip the fuck out. You're also able to take your frustration and anger out on people online, whereas you can't really do that with your family or community members that are discriminating against you. Yeah, I agree with that. Juniper also adds, I think, to that point, people who are struggling with being affirmed don't like seeing people be carefree and happy about their identities. I wonder if maybe that's part of it. I wonder if maybe there is a degree of jealousy too, where, you know, it's like, well, how can you be, the imaginary, like, I'm imagining what Calvin Guerra might think. He's like, how can you be comfortable with your femininity when I have to police myself in order to be perceived as male? How can you be comfortable with your tranny voice if I have to work so hard on voice training so that I don't sound like that, you know, like, I don't know. Blue Spectra also says that, I will say that a lot of people who are online and deal with bigotry bullshit IRL do use their online spaces as a way to get away from that. So I can understand someone getting bent out of shape over seeing things that are more borderline. Perhaps.
I don't. It's like, if the criticism is framed in an incredibly hostile way, I'm just like, no. If people are actually trying to get me to understand something and are willing to show some patience, I'm absolutely willing to take that criticism. I don't see myself as someone who is above criticism, but my main concern is the issue within the community of bad actors who weaponize these issues.
True.
You're literally the victim of the largest transmisogynistic hate campaigns in history of the internet. Of course, you're not going to have the emotional capacity to filter the genuine criticism from the dishonest criticism. Yeah, that's fucking it. And like, I don't think a lot of the criticism that people ask me to address is legitimately criticism. I do think it's just harassment. And there are way too many bad actors who take advantage of their marginalized status in order to try and smear other people. This is something that people do. Like, I've even seen other trans people try to smear cis people they don't like as transphobic without them actually doing anything transphobic.
True.
They try to weaponize their marginalized status in order to gain the upper hand on another person. And it's always wrong to do. Although what you're describing is not unique to the LGBT community, this kind of oppression, Olympics bullying, is a big problem in general. It is a big problem in general, but I think it takes on a very unique form within the LGBT community and especially within the trans community. Like, there's no other place besides the trans community where someone would say, you transitioned young and this is a privilege and you shouldn't speak for other trans people. That's not a thing that people who aren't trans would say.
Yeah, I feel like that's totally fair. I think that's completely fair.
Your person chat needs to go and read Allostatic Load. Fantastic article, the kind of trans feminine disposability that Keffals has been on the receiving end. Interesting.
Trans feminine disposability.
This one article, and I want to see if I can find it. Okay, yeah. So there was an article, and I really like showing people this article because I think it explains a little bit of why this happens. So it was an extra article. It was called Why Queer People Are So Mean to Each Other. I'm just gonna like cut right into it, the part that I think is very pertinent. Leading experts in the field of neurobiology, trauma treatment, and somatics theorize that trauma, broadly defined as exposure to stress or life danger that overwhelms the body's capacity to cope, has a profound impact on the development of the brain and nervous system. Repeated trauma, especially the trauma of violence, abuse, and neglect, has a particular effect on the ways that human beings process and respond to social interactions. In short, if we are repeatedly exposed to danger through the behavior of other humans, we come to see all humans as inherently dangerous. And all of our primal instincts are shaped around treating other humans as potential threats. Let's apply that.
I think that's so true. That's such a good point. Like, it's literally true. You're conditioned to be able to respond in familiar situations. Like, so if every time you interact with other people, you get misgendered and it hurts, and someone dismisses your trauma and it hurts, and someone calls you fucking stupid and it hurts. Like, you start to associate any interaction with other human beings as being potentially harmful, and so you tend to want to isolate. Like, this is also part of why abuse victims have a tendency to be extreme loners later in life. Like, they have a tendency to want to, like, because like after the abuse has stopped, like if you're a victim of childhood abuse, like I was, like your parent like escalates and then they fucking hit you and then they go away. Like once they hit you, that starts to diffuse their anger. They've like let out the steam a little bit. They've punished you.
That theory to queers. Now, sociological research tells us that queer and trans people are disproportionately likely to experience abuse, sexual violence, homelessness, and bullying in childhood and adolescence. Even those of us who somehow managed to escape outright abuse and neglect still grew up in a world where we needed to keep secrets, where at any moment we might come across someone who hated us or wished us harm because of who we are, where our basic rights and dignity might be taken away at the whim of the next politician to take office. The result of all of this exposure to trauma, to the very real threat of violence and ostracization from our family, friends, and entire society, is that queers as a collective sustain serious trauma to our internal sense of ourselves and others. In his widely read 2014 opus, The Body Keeps the Score, psychiatrist and trauma expert Bessel van der Kolk writes that the memory of trauma is encoded in the body in the form of intense sensations and physical reactions, such as chronic pain, numbness, labored breathing, nausea, movement impulse, and infinite others.
True, but if you try prolonged exposure therapy, or EMDR, you can clear those physical symptoms out of your body. Hi, my name's Luxander. Did you know that you can do about 3 months of prolonged exposure therapy once a week? And if you do the homework that your therapist sends you home with, then you too can clear out all of the very stupid fucking trauma symptoms from your body. Do you find yourself waking up crying in the middle of the night? Do you find yourself jumping at the slightest noise? Try prolonged exposure and see what a difference it can make for you. That sounded like a joke, but I mean, because I was using the format of the antidepressant commercial as a joke, but also that's not a fucking joke. More queer people need to take control and do 3 fucking months of prolonged exposure therapy, and you won't do this stupid shit anymore. Yes, you should try prolonged exposure therapy. All right, come on.
Psychologist and inventor of somatic experience trauma resolution Peter Levine teaches that these sensations can be categorized as belonging to ancient primal survival mechanisms rooted in the nervous system: flight, fight, and freeze. These primal strategies shape our emotions and our thoughts and our basic beliefs about ourselves and the world. What happens to a community of people who have been raised with sensation of constant looming danger, of being fundamentally wrong in the way we love and express ourselves? What impact might that collective trauma have upon our bodies and spirits? Scholars of the brain are fond of saying what fires together wires together, which refers to the brain's tendency to form neural networks that become stronger and stronger every time they are used. Trauma theory holds that traumatized individuals, and I would hypothesize queer and trans...
True, Emily Hargrave. It's much easier to believe it's everyone else's job to accommodate your trauma and not do anything to trigger you. True.
Community as a whole have well-worn neural networks shaped around the deeply held physical sensation that we are constantly in danger, that we are bad and unlovable, that others are untrustworthy and violent. Every time we are abused, discriminated against, or neglected, those neural networks become stronger, while neural networks associated with safety and loving relationships atrophy. We become physically less capable of imagining a world where being with others is not synonymous with being unsafe.
True.
So that's the crux. This, I believe, is why traumatized communities struggle so profoundly with loving one another. We have been hardwired for suspicion and terror of betrayal, which in turn feeds into the logics of disposability and incarceration. We come to believe that making a mistake, any mistake, whether big or small, makes someone bad and dangerous. We believe that we need to punish people who are bad and dangerous, that some people are simply too bad and too dangerous to keep among us. Yeah. Okay, come on with the Among Us jokes. Seriously.
Yeah.
Link to the article? Yeah, it's
jokes.
right here. I'll link it in both chats. So the best explanation I could think of for this behavior, because it's extremely carceral. It's extremely carceral behavior. And coming from a community of people who, for the most part, do not like the police, it's kind of crazy how much that they're willing to emulate these carceral behaviors, where when someone in the community is deemed bad, you need to remove them.
That's why you know they're liberals and not leftists.
As an example of this carceral behavior that I'm talking about, this is pretty apt. So this was back on September 4th. Okay, so now that Cloudflare has dropped Kiwi Farms, can we stop ignoring the fact that Keffals is racist? Because I remember a lot of folks saying that we should just leave it alone until the bad side is dealt with. So surely now we can acknowledge that she's racist and disown her, yeah? And that's like what I mean by the carceral behavior. Yeah, can't disown who isn't yours. I mean, that's a thing too. I think there's one thing that really pisses people off where like a lot of trans people do not want me to have a platform, but they also can't take that platform away from me, which really fucking pisses them off.
Cheers.
But that's fine. I think Vosh called this person a dipshit. They deserve it. But yeah, it's just like with these allegations that I'm calling.
Yeah, dang Catlord, they're just trying to avoid people who name search. Like, if you spelled Keffals normally, then if you typed Keffals in the search, then this tweet would show up. But they said Keffals, so it's dodging the search function.
Constantly dealing with. It's like they're not actually based on anything substantive, but because they get said enough, people take it as fact. And that's the thing. It's like at a certain point, it doesn't need to even be true for people to actually continuously say it and believe it. Why would trans people not want me to have this platform? Because they don't like me. It's very simple. They don't like me and they spread lies about me constantly that are based on very little. Like the start of the racism allegations was literally because I added the Italian flag to the fucking progress flag as a joke. That I'm not even joking. Like that was the start of it. That was actually the start of it. It always kind of fuck right now, but this was 2 years ago. But it's like, I know that it's not true. It's pretty obvious that it's not true, but they don't need it to be true. And this is sort of what I mean about the weaponization of social justice rhetoric, where people start lobbing accusations at you. And then you have an entire echo chamber of tenderqueers who are saying the same thing. And then if enough people are saying it, people start to think, okay, well, maybe there's some merit to this. A lot of people are saying this, but that's not how that
Many people are saying this. True.
works. If you encourage setting boundaries, hashing out conflicts, and actually getting things done, these people will crawl out of the woodwork to destroy you by any means they can come up with. Oh yeah, they only crawl out of the woodwork when I'm in some sort of like viral moment. They crawl out of the woodwork and reignite this controversy about me, and then they stop talking about me until the next thing happens. And part of the reason that I wanted to address this in the first place is because I wanted my community to know they are not part of the community. They're not part of my community. They're not good people to have around. They do.
Yeah, I don't think that we really have any issues with Wokescolds in our community, because I think that I've already very thoroughly managed to like tell them to fuck off. Like, I'm still a fan of ContraPoints. Like, I still am a fan of Vosh. Like, honestly, like, if I could be personal friends with some of these super toxic people, I probably would. I'd rather be like personal friends with Ethan Klein than associate myself with any fucking Wokescold, you know? They went after ContraPoints. Katja, the shit with ContraPoints is like, ContraPoints has been long since canceled since like 2 fucking years ago. Like, it's like literally like I've been blocked by personal friends over my continuing to think that ContraPoints is not hate. She doesn't hate non-binary people. Like, it's so fucking stupid.
Do not help. They don't actually know what solidarity is. They don't know what building bridges is. They don't know how to function outside of insular echo chambers. And the only way to make change in this world is to talk to people that you have nothing in common with. Honestly, I think you should just stop giving these people the attention they want. I mean, like, I usually ignore them, but I've wanted to address this for a while. it needed to be addressed. This is a serious issue in the community that no one is willing to talk about because no one wants to endure the wrath of the community by talking about it, but I don't give a shit. I just don't care. Like, if I can withstand the entirety of the heat of kiwi farms, I can say that there are a lot of toxic people in the trans community who attack their own community more than they do anything that materially benefits their community. I don't want to be quiet about it. Like, some people have said to me that one of the issues that they don't like about me is that I won't rein my community in, and I won't. I don't think any of you did anything wrong. Like, honestly, I think more of the tenderqueers need pushback. I don't think that they should feel as comfortable as they do lobbing accusations left and right in an effort to, like, slander people through oppression Olympics. If I do something fucked up...
Honestly, like, I think that it's entirely possible that Keffals might have the, like, resources behind her to come after people for libel, like, to actually sue some of these people for libel. I really doubt that she would do it, but I think she could, and it would be legally sound to do so.
Up, I'm willing to own up to it. I'm not above criticism. But a lot of the criticism isn't based on actual criticism. It's not based on anything except vibes. I think the perverse incentives of social media lead to a lot of these behaviors. Even alternative social media like Mastodon had problems with tenderqueer drama. Yeah, no. Like, I noticed this with people like Twink Bride and other tenderqueers. They basically turned their accounts into Keffals hate accounts.
Oh, no.
And I'm not
Keffals
even joking
accounts.
because they realized...
Hey, welcome to the website, Ace Strider. Welcome. I appreciate you coming over.
They could get good engagement by doing that. And I think they're so fucking addicted to the updates from running these accounts at this point that they just can't stop. Like, every fucking thing besides talking about me flops. Oh yeah, no, I remember when Twink Bride...
Yeah. You gotta, like, you turn your brand into being a Keffals drama streamer.
I was complaining that I was showing cleavage on stream because at the end of the day, the tenderqueers don't actually have values, at least values that they're willing to talk about publicly. Like, a lot of it is virtue signaling. It's literally just like trying to show that they have the best morals or the most virtuous. How dare I show cleavage on stream? I know, it's so fucking weird to get mad at.
How dare you, Keffals, show cleavage on stream? I'm trying to fucking listen to the words that you're saying, and the cleavage is distracting from the words that you're saying. Like, I'm trying to respect you as a woman, but disrespectfully, the booba is distracting me. Re-booba true.
About that? How do you tell someone is virtue signaling or genuinely doing something they believe in? That is a good question. And that's actually a hard thing to tell. If they only publicly talk about disagreements they have with you, even when they're supposedly working towards the same goals, that's a good clue. Honestly, that is true. Okay, so here's a good example of, like, the manipulation of social justice rhetoric in order to attack people. So, like what Twink Bride was saying here. I made a tweet. I only run mass blocks on large tweets that are spreading misinformation about me. It keeps my main account not having dogshit replies filled with Nazis and Kiwi farmers. If you get hit by a stray, you can DM me here. That's always been the rule. And the response to this, when I'm talking about Nazis and Kiwi farmers, was truly wild how Keffals and Aaron will chain block half of black trans Twitter and then call them Nazis. Like, literally me trying
so
as
hard.
a trans person who is consistently targeted by fascists, a racist, because I'm trying to keep myself from getting harassed. It's just like, this is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of tenderqueer shit I mean. It's literally just manipulation of issues that people care about in order to smear someone. Like, maybe this excuse works on your audience of 16 to 20-year-olds who don't follow any black people, but people talk to each other. We know you're lying. They can't even get their stories straight. I blocked half of black trans Twitter because they are Nazis. Aaron, I accidentally went through a series of specific clicks that result in blocking half of black trans Twitter. Aaron ran a chain block on a tweet by a Kiwi. Like, people were sharing around, she did this shit. Like, she's a fucking heinous person. Like, where was it? Here's Twink Bride sharing Discord logs of me talking to a Kiwi Farms user where I'm literally just fucking trolling the guy. And Aaron, being someone who had a Kiwi Farms thread, felt very triggered even seeing the name Winter. Is it the fail docs log? That wasn't a fail docs. That was actually, unless he wants to show his driver's license, I'm going to assume it was real. And he said it was a fail docs. But also, I didn't dox him. He self-published his own information. Doxing is the public publishing of information, which I did not do. So, like, Twink Bride was willing to share the chat logs of a Kiwi Farms user in order to fucking instigate harassment against me. Like, I don't have 6 figures in a fucking savings account. Why the fuck would I be honest about my finances with a Kiwi Farms user? That doesn't make any sense. But she doesn't care because she's doing the tenderqueer tactic, right? It's like, all right, I know racism bad, and I know that I can manipulate people into thinking Keffals racist, and I think Keffals bad. Therefore, I can make other people think Keffals bad by labeling Keffals as a bigot. And that's how this shit goes. And that's why these people are dangerous to the community, because they're not actually accountable. They're allowed to just get away with this, and this behavior is encouraged even. And it's like saying, like, if I managed to grift $100,000 by using the image of racist police murders and then had to block half of Black trans Twitter after calling a Black trans femme a cancer for calling out said, it's just, this isn't serious. This is really just fucking virtue.
I love this new leftist thing where we call people deeply unserious. Is like, am I wrong in thinking like this is like one of the most intense things that a leftist can say about someone now? Like, it's one of the most dismissive things you can say about someone is like, this is a deeply unserious person. Like, I just don't take anything you say seriously. Winter is one of Keffals' main stalkers. I see. I see.
Signaling, right? Like, if I gave thousands of dollars to random GoFundMes and Cash Apps, no one would fucking know. And if I were to publicly talk about it, people would accuse me of only doing this because people are making accusations.
True. Like, you could be helping homeless people every fucking other day, but if you tell anyone, people are gonna be like, oh my god, you're clout sharking so hard. And it's like, well, I just wanted to like give someone like $100 because I had $100 and I also wanted to take a photo with them. Like, I don't know, like, to prove that it happened, because otherwise people are gonna say I'm not charitable enough. Like, yeah, how, like, it's a fucking catch-22. Like, what are you supposed to do?
Against me that I'm a bigot, right? So it's a catch-22 where what they're doing is they're trying to signal that I'm a bad person because I'm not giving my money away. But if I did do that, I would also be a bad person. Then she called me a grifter. I don't make any money on this platform, and I donate to Black trans people almost every week. I highlight Black fundraisers under my viral posts. So much projection. But it's something I believe. Like, I don't think that you need to make money to be a grifter. Like, if you're trying to build a platform, which she obviously is, otherwise she wouldn't need to keep engaging in this stuff, then she does not have an issue making stuff up if it gets her likes and it results in attacking the reputation of the people that she views as an enemy. And it's like, she's accusing me of lying about a police encounter, which now has made it so I am routinely getting accused by other trans people of lying about the police encounter when there is nothing that I lied about. It doesn't even make sense. And it's like, I have to keep going over it, right? But we all know it's true. They don't believe in victims. They're actually victim blaming quite hard here.
True.
And they think it's virtuous because I'm not as marginalized as other people who she claims I'm an enemy of. So it's like in this thread where she's trying to prove that I am a terrible person, she's victim blaming someone who is the victim of police violence and also trying to drag them through the mud. And it's crazy. And they want me to relive trauma, right? Because it's like the only way for me to disprove this is to constantly like drudge up the memories in my mind of being woken up to police shouting at me and pointing a fucking assault rifle at me. But they don't care. And this is why I thought it was important to address this, because these are not the kinds of people you can trust or consider community. Even if they're nice to you at the start, they will absolutely throw you under the bus if they...
That's the difference between being nice and being kind. Like, they'll be nice to your face, but then they'll fuck you over later.
Can see it benefiting them in some way. Not every person who is part of the LGBT community is actually part of your community. The Psycho Rants from yesterday? Yeah, it is. And it has so much fucking engagement only because there's been so much fucking, I don't even know the word to describe it. I'm a minority until the infighting happens, and then I'm the most privileged person in the conversation, which is fucking insane.
True.
Like, I can't fucking fathom it. It doesn't make any sense. Keffals, but your trauma is no longer convenient for them, and you're now viewed as more influential than them. That means that anything positive for you is perceived as a threat to them. The one thing that I hate is that I don't want anything to do with them. I feel like the tenderqueers in the community are actively a detriment to the entire movement, to any real change or any effort that we could possibly undertake in order to protect our rights. And every fucking move I make, like, they are like fucking latching onto me like leeches trying to suck all the blood out of me. Watch as me saying that is going to be used as like evidence for bigotry or some shit because I'm not allowed to have feelings. I'm not allowed to say
calling someone a vampire is anti-Semitic or something. I don't know.
Anything that's off script. It's so fucking stupid. So anyway, I don't even know what the takeaway is or what the conclusion of this is. I just wanted to say that is what a tenderqueer is. Do not treat them. You shouldn't treat them as a member of your community because they will hurt you actively any given chance they can if they see it benefiting them. They are not interested in the common good of all people in their community. They're only looking after themselves and their best interests.
Yeah. So I appreciated the whole video. There were plenty of asides that we took during that video. Overall, like, I'm really just glad that this is being talked about on a broader platform than it has previously been seen, because I've been bitching about this for a long time. I've been saying for a long time, like, for a while, my entire friend group was SJWs, because that's just where I happened to find myself. I was like, oh, these people are progressive. They'll respect my pronouns. But then, like, all of the interpersonal, like, the cutthroat interpersonal shit, I was like, I can't do this. Like, my fear of abandonment is being constantly triggered because, like, I know that if I ask the wrong questions, I will be excommunicated. And, like, at the time, it wasn't as important for me financially, but now it is a big deal financially. And, like, I can't deal with being in a community with people who are just gonna, like, turn on you suddenly and be like, rip, you know, sucks to be you. Like, you're not gonna, you're just gonna have to, like, deal with being forced to conform. Like, it's thought policing, like, to an extent. There's, like, thought policing, you know. I hate giving any ground to the conservatives who bitch about this behavior, but, like, I can't like give the conservatives that much power to say, like, that I can't even criticize behavior happening within my own community, that I can't talk about the fact that I deserve a place to speak my own mind without being overly policed by other people who feel like my experience is somehow a threat to their experience, you know, like, it's not useful. And I'm glad that more people are talking about this. I'm honestly, the thing that I'm most worried about is Keffals mentioned that she was not getting very much pushback for this video. And I worry almost, like, more than anything, that this is going to fizzle out and that there's not going to be broader discussion. Like, if bigger creators picked up on this, like if Vosh and Demon Mama and Xander Hall all talked about the tenderqueer issue all at the same time as Keffals, and here I am adding my voice to the tenderqueer issue conversation, like the tenderqueer question. I think that it is worthwhile to really stand up and say fuck you to these Wokescold pieces of shit who do make progress slower, who do make this coalition building harder, you know, who do genuinely threaten the livelihood of people who, like myself, are boxed out of traditional employment and trying to make it, you know. I would just like to see there being more discussion about this. Like, I really would like to see more coalition building, and I would like it if we could band together more and be like, yeah, I'm not going to dump this person just because they're kind of problematic, or like that there was some accusation at some point that was not fully substantiated. And then, like, when you ask, like, what is the accusation and can you substantiate it? They go like, it's racist of you to ask me for evidence of their whatever. Like, okay, calm the fuck down. Thank you so much to all of my supporters, especially my patrons, and especially these ones. We have Tiago Nascimento, Mersh Rolvag, Brandon, Jovian F. Gaudreau, Bean, Heather Clarkson, Amanda B., R. Halverson, Michelle Winter, Athiette, Sarah A., Decoy Duck, Wellington Marcus, Suzanne Maynard, Nova, Sojo, Mr. Atheist, and Elizabeth Bartell.